HOA Karen damaged my dad's sailboat. Got 6 months in jail for property damage. The marina was quiet that evening, save for the creak of boats bobbing in the tide and the distant squawk of a gull. I stood on the dock, staring at the jagged gash in my dad's sailboat. The salty sparrow, feeling like someone had punched a hole through my chest. Karen, the HOA's self-appointed enforcer, had done this. Her name was practically a curse word around here now. I'd only been back in town for a week, helping my dad settle into his new place by the coast after Mom passed. The sailboat was his pride, his escape, the one thing that still brought a spark to his tired eyes. It wasn't just a boat. It was his last tether to the open water, to memories of sailing with Mom under starlit skies. I ran my hand along the splintered hull, my fingers catching on the rough edges where the damage began. Paint flakes littered the deck like confetti from a cruel celebration. How could someone do this? Why? Karen had been a thorn in everyone's side since the HOA hired her to manage the marina. She strutted around with her clipboard, her pinched face always hunting for something to complain about: untied ropes, unpolished railings, or, God forbid, a boat parked an inch off its assigned buoy. Dad had laughed her off at first, calling her the Admiral of Petty, but I saw the way her eyes narrowed when he waved her away, refusing to repaint the salty sparrow to match the HOA's approved aesthetic. She'd been gunning for him ever since. It started small, a warning letter about the boat's non-compliant blue hull, then a fine for excessive barnacle growth. Even though Dad scraped the bottom every month, I thought it was just Karen being Karen, annoying but harmless. I was wrong. Last week, Dad found a note taped to the helm: conform or pay the price. He crumpled it up, muttering about her being all bark and no bite. But now, staring at the wreckage of his boat, I realized Karen's bite was worse than we'd ever imagined. I called Dad from the dock, my voice shaking as I described the damage. He didn't say much, just a heavy sigh and, "I'll be there soon. Ethan." When he arrived, his shoulders slumped like the weight of the world had settled on them. He didn't cry, but his silence was louder than any sob. We stood there, two men staring at a broken dream, until a neighbor, old Mr. Jenkins, shuffled over, his cane tapping the dock. "Karen did this," he said, voice low. "Saw her last night, sneaking around with a crowbar. Didn't think she'd go this far." My blood ran cold. A crowbar. This wasn't an accident. This was vandalism, pure and simple. I stormed to the HOA office, Dad trailing behind, trying to calm me down. The office was a sterile box of glass and fake plants, and Karen sat behind her desk, her lips pursed like she'd just tasted something sour. "Ethan." "I'm busy," she said, not looking up from her paperwork. "File a complaint in writing." "Busy," I snapped, slamming my hands on her desk. "You smashed my dad's boat. You think you can just hide behind your clipboard?" Her eyes flicked up, cold and unyielding. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe you should maintain your property better. Boats don't just break." The smugness in her voice made my fist clench. Dad put a hand on my shoulder, but I could feel his own anger simmering. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of the salty sparrow's ruined hull burned in my mind. I started asking around the marina, piecing together what happened. Most folks were too scared of Karen to talk, but Mr. Jenkins wasn't. He'd seen her near the boat at midnight, her flashlight bobbing like a firefly. Another neighbor, Maria, admitted she'd overheard Karen ranting at the last HOA meeting about teaching non-compliant owners a lesson. The pieces were coming together, but I needed proof. The next morning, I met with Sarah, a quiet woman who ran the marina's security cameras. She was new, barely 20, and nervous about getting involved. "I could lose my job," she whispered, glancing around like Karen might pop out of the shadows. But when I showed her a picture of the boat, her face softened. "My dad used to sail," she said. "I'll check the footage." Sarah came through. The grainy video showed Karen, unmistakable in her HOA-branded windbreaker, circling the salty sparrow with a crowbar. She swung it with a fury that made my stomach churn, each strike splintering the hull. The timestamp read 12:17 a.m. Just as Mr. Jenkins had said, I had her. But Karen wasn't going down without a fight. When I confronted her with the footage at the next HOA meeting, she laughed a sharp, brittle sound that echoed in the room. That's not me, she said, leaning back in her chair. Could be anyone in a jacket. You're grasping Ethan. The other board members shifted uncomfortably, unwilling to challenge her. She'd ruled this place like a queen for years, and they were too spineless to stand up. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. During the meeting, a man stood up from the back of the room. Tom, a grizzled mechanic who'd kept to himself since moving to the marina a month ago. I saw her too, he said, his voice rough but steady. Not just that night. Karen's been shaking down other owners, threatening to report them for fake violations unless they pay her off. She tried it with me last week. The room went silent. Even Karen's smug mask slipped for a moment. Tom's words lit a fire. Other owners started speaking up, sharing stories of Karen's bullying fines for made-up infractions, threats to seize boats, even rumors she'd damaged other property to enforce her rules. The marina was a powder keg, and Tom's confession was the match. I looked at Dad, his eyes wide with a mix of hope and disbelief. For the first time, it felt like we weren't alone. The confrontation came a week later, on the same dock where I'd first seen the damage. I'd called the police, armed with the video and statements from Mr. Jenkins, Tom, and others. Karen showed up, flanked by 2 HOA board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She crossed her arms and her chin jutting out defiantly. This is harassment, she spat. You can't prove anything. I held up my phone. The video queued up. This says otherwise. As the footage played, her face paled, but she doubled down. That's fabricated. You edited it. Her voice cracked, and the crowd of neighbors gathered behind me murmured in disgust. The police officer, a no-nonsense woman named Officer Daniels, stepped forward. Ma'am, we've got multiple witnesses and physical evidence, she said, her tone flat. You're coming with us. Karen's bravado crumbled as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. She shouted about lawsuits and her rights, but the marina was done with her. The crowd parted as she was led away, some whispering, others glaring. Dad stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder, and for the first time in days, I saw a flicker of relief in his eyes. The aftermath wasn't clean. Karen's arrest made local news, and the HOA scrambled to distance itself from her. She was charged with property damage and extortion, and at the trial, the judge didn't hold back. Your actions weren't just petty, they were malicious, he said, sentencing her to 6 months in jail and thousands in restitution. The salty sparrow would take months to repair, but the money would help. More importantly, Dad started smiling again, even talking about taking me sailing once the boat was fixed. The marina changed after that. The HOA board was overhauled, and Sarah, the security tech, was promoted to a management role. Tom became a regular at Dad's poker nights, his gruff exterior hiding a sharp wit that kept us laughing. But the real victory was the quiet Karen's reign of terror was over, and the dock felt like home again. Still, I couldn't shake the question, how does someone get so twisted that they destroy something as personal as a boat just to flex power? Was it pride, spite, or just a need to control? I'm still figuring that out. What do you think? Where do you draw the line between enforcing rules and becoming a tyrant? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear them.